Alright guys, check this one out. I know you guys are probably thinking, Arch, what you got there? It's like Bush League. I know, fellas. It looks Bush League. It's got good bones. It's an MTD with a Takumi 8 horsepower on it. Right? It's not terrible. Yes, it is, Arch. It looks like a piece of junk. Look, guys, all right, slow down, right? Basically, it ran, and its bones are decent. And so it's kind of late. I was just talking to my buddy TJ out there, the one with the other snowblower. He's gone. He's happy. And so this is the next guy up. It's got good bones. Okay. Yes, it looks like crap. We're gonna clean it up. Let me take a few parts off of it. It needs a bath. He and I, TJ and I were hanging out for a while, so it's getting late. It's getting cold. It's gonna rain, or it looks like snow. But I think I have enough time today to just take some of the skirts and the junk off of it. And then we'll bring it outside, and then we get it cleaned up, and we'll bring it in, and then tomorrow we'll take another look at it, and we'll get started on it. All right? I'm not making any promises, but she basically ran. It's all here. Don't judge. Got the muffler off. Got all the bolts out. Everything is just laying. All right? This is tied back so I don't lose the rod and all that. Everything's ready to come off, but we're just going to wait for that. We're going to bring it out. Wash it like this, get some super clean on it. I'll show you a close-up of it then when we get outside when the lighting is better. And then I can take, this will just come right off, and we can take the other pieces off. I can clean it up a little bit more. Then we'll put it on its face, and we'll get the pan underneath off, and we'll get in there cleaned out. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. We want to get all this stuff washed today. It's still, the weather's still holding. It's real gray and dark, and it's getting a little chilly, but I think we can get this done. Let's get to it. And as is customary, we're going to be selecting our weapon to start off with for today, the super clean, the regular one. Now I do have foamy in the spray bottle as well, but I like to wet everything down just with the hose, just to kind of get it wet, and it makes sort of this aqueous solution, you know, kind of like go in and just better. And so I'm going to go around, and then I think maybe when we take off the covers the rest of the way, I might come back and hit it with a little bit of the foamy. So we'll see. Be right back, and we'll see how well it does. Stand by. Laying down on there nice. All right, let's just let it do its job. Right, I'm gonna futz with it. I don't want to futz with it, just leave it. I'm gonna go take a break. Oh, it's getting cold. I just set up in, out over here in the garage part of the shop. Just a quick coat of some rusty metal primer because it is rusty. All right, so I got the coil off and I'm cleaning it with my wire. You can do a wire wheel. I'm using my Scotch-Brite whiz wheel. So I did one side, I got to do the other. And of course, I just want to make a note. Let me get around here. So you want to make sure you do these sort of standoffs here because you want a good connection to what I call the ground or the body of the engine. So we have good stable connection. And then I'm going to do the magnet, but this magnet's a little rustier, so I can't use the Scotch-Brite. We're going to have to use an abrasive wheel on this. And clean everything up, and I'm going to put it back together and gap it to 10 thousandths. I have another video coming out on doing just this motor. Same thing over on TJ's machine. But same process, get that squared away. Then I'm going to get that, well, lubricate all of this. I'll show you what I do later. But again, that's also in that other video. And when I'm done, I'll come back and we'll get all this buttoned up. All right, while I'm here, I replaced this fuel line. So we got a nice fuel line. This is the best time to do it, fellas, if you're going to do it. The last one I did didn't need it. But this one, I went to pull, all the clamps broke off because of rust. And then I went to pull the fuel valve off to replace the clamps, and it started to split. So it just kind of gets tucked up in here behind this. Has to be kept out of the flywheel. It's very easy to do when you have the cover off. So I generally recommend doing it. It's just a nice thing to do. But if you don't need to do it, if yours is in good shape. Now, another thing too is it's nice to use this somewhat thinner fuel line. Especially when you're trying to install one of these with the cover on. If the cover's on, I have a process for doing that. All right, but it's much easier to take the cover off. It's so much easier. All right, so his motor works, and I'll show you, but what we want to do is we want to lubricate it. So we got to get only oil, and I say this, there's not too many greases that you can put inside of this Bendix. And I like to put motor oil in here because a grease, when these things get cold, I want to get the bushing too. There's a bushing down in here. So pull the Bendix out, get some oil in there, spin it up. And don't be afraid to put too much because it'll just, leak out. But we want a good coat. All right, get it up in there and try to get it, to gravity. Like I said, don't be afraid. Hopefully yours is good. If you're able to still spin it, it's probably okay. All right. All right, there you go. Now let's give it a quick test. There we go, see? And it's spun all the excess out. And then if you want, I put grease. You can put a little grease on the gear. I also put it on the flywheel, so we should be okay. Quick test. I want to check the spark too. I got a plug in it. Let's see. Is it going to work? It's going to freak out? What's it going to do? Yep. Oh, I got spark. I'm going to throw, I got to move the camera. It's starting to throw grease. And I don't want to throw it on my camera. No, Arch, we want you to do that. Yeah, I know, fellas, but then I got to clean it off, okay? It's slinging. No sling formula. Oh, yeah. I got spark. All right, we're almost there. So this is all lubed up, greased up, adjusted to 10 thousandths. Everything is good. And so now we're going to turn our attention to the cover. Let me go show you the cover and we'll put the cover on so we can move forward. I put oil in from here underneath that little flap. And then I also put oil in here. Let me just wipe some of it off. I put it all, kind of get it behind and around. I try to get it in here. All right, let me see if I'm focused. Well, that's good enough. And then I shoot some behind this piece there. And I just, if you make a mess, just wipe it up. And then I pull it through, and now it pulls right. Because you need to do that. Not only did we wash it, but dirt gets in, but mostly the salt, that spring will break. It'll be difficult to pull. So that's done. I'm going to go put it on, all right? And this tube looks like it's good. This part looks good, all right? Doesn't that look nice? Oh, look, I can peel off this one a little bit more tape. All right, I'll be back. All right, I always remove the key wire because we don't need a key. Now over here is a lot of rust, so I'm taking my wire brush and I also put a little acid. But you want to clean this area here and that little tang because, let me hold the camera different. Because when you come down, that's your kill, see? Turn a little light on. And then you want to make sure it's making a good contact. So I'm letting that acid sort of set up a little bit. And then I'll come back and hit it a little bit more with a wire brush. And then I'm going to spray it, wipe everything off, just clean it off with a bit of soap water, just to neutralize it. And then we're going to hit it with some chain wax and it'll be fine. So we're just about ready to put the carburetor on. All right, quick tip. Now, a lot of times you don't need a gasket, but if you wanted to put a gasket on, I like the Briggs gaskets. Same thing with 5 horsepower motors, and I just take my uni bit and I just open it up a little bit. But you don't necessarily need it because there's a lip here, and that helps it to sort of seal against the block. But if you want to put one on, use one of those. And I part out so many machines. This would last a couple of years. It won't be all shiny like this, which is good. It'll just kind of settle in, and that paint that I like is just terrific, and the customers like it. So these rims got cleaned up pretty good, from pressure washing. And this is old paint. It's got to be from, I don't know, did a professional job years ago, I don't know, maybe 80s. And I used some of this on the rims of the tractor, the Toro 826 snowblower. It's the slab of paint, solidified paint that just came out of it, again, is like 3/4 of an inch thick. And because it's more of a professional paint, it'll kind of cover over all the sins, but I have to leave it sort of upright for it to tack up. So I'm going to put this down somewhere. Probably should have started off with the underside. And since it's like Friday and getting towards the end of the day, tell me that won't look better, right? Just like this. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And yeah, you could take a wire wheel to it and everything, but there isn't the budget in this job. So we're just going to make it nicer than it was and presentable, service it, kind of make it worthy of having, and so that when he pulls this thing out, his neighbors don't banish him to the dead end and go, "We don't want you here." All right, I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, it's cold and windy. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time, fellas, with the grinder and the wire wheel, just quick, a couple of spots. Then I'll rinse it off with some super clean. I'm not going to hit everything, just a quickie. And then rinse it off with the hose, or actually I got the pressure washer out. And then I'll hit it with a little bit of my acid and rinse that off when it's dry. And I'll just come back and we'll stick it outside somewhere for the day. I have other things to do. I got other things to clean. It's it's cold out. It's kind of freezing, but it's just above freezing. And we'll get this done and I'll set it aside. Carburetor's on its way. All right, I just want to give you a quick look. Some of it's in the sun, some of it's not, right? But it looks good. And you'll see. Over here, I'm going to hit this. When I do the acid, I'm going to grab a little Scotch-Brite and kind of stick my hand in there. It's just a bit of surface rust. But it's in good shape. You don't have to get everything, fellas. The front was the worst. This has just been peeling off and peeling off. I do it out here because it makes a mess. And that dust is nasty and it gets in the tools and everything. So I'm going to give it a quick bath. A little super clean, like I said. And then... yeah, I'll rinse it, and I'll throw the acid on, and then a rinse, and it's done. I'll put the tires back. But let me show you what I used. So very simple. So this is just standard grinder. This is probably like 60 or 80 grit, something like that. I generally don't use 36 unless I really want something aggressive. And of course it's worn down. And then I wound up using this guy, this brush, cup brush on that. And then I have these, and I brought these out just in case, but I don't really need to get that crazy, all right? Just some good stainless steel, and that's all I did. And now I'm going to use the Super Clean and a little bit of acid. And then, of course, the pressure washer, which is really the thing that, when I first started, this has just been flaking and dumping all over. I'm not going to get too involved inside the can, right? We're just going to throw some paint in there and call it a day. It's not that bad inside in the auger area. It's just the outside. What a mess. And the wire wheel I used to get in these areas here a little bit. I think it looks good. Okay. She's real clean. And I'm thinking I might brush paint, because I think it might be a little easier on me to do rather than stink everything up, and I don't have to mask as much. And he's not looking for it like one of the Primo units that I do. But, you know, think about how nice this will be when I'm done with it. I'm going to put a little maybe rusty metal primer on it. Might blow a little rusty metal primer inside there, you know, inside here. I know it's hard to see some of it, but yeah, you know, because it's half in the sun, half in the shade. All right, let's take a look at the next thing. All right, doesn't look too bad. Okay, this is for the most part all stable paint. I'll scrape a little bit of this off, but we'll tape it. We'll tape this. So all this is going to happen a little bit right after I'm done with the belt. And I could do the carburetor too, but I think we'll just paint it. I'll tape this off. I'll tape this area in here to make it a little bit easier. And yeah, maybe a little bit by the handle. This is not going to require a lot of paint over here. Down in there is good. Up there we'll get probably a little bit later. We'll see. I may do it in 2 different times. I don't know. We'll see. All right, I'm going to put it down. I just wanted to mention that I put a new bolt in here, and I also had one of these. He lost the bolt, but he also lost this thing. Right, that's a special spreader, right, that's used. A number of machines use a spreader like that when you're trying to push in and tighten up something that's a handlebar or a round surface. You need that. Just the bolt itself won't do it. This is some black oil, right? Because it was, look at that. It is some of the blackest oil, and there's like no lubricity left. All right, now we're going to put some red on it. I did this the other day. Pretty much ready. It's just primer, right? That's rusty metal primer. You don't have to hit everything, but you know, this because so much was missing. All right, I'm going to pull the wheels off. We'll put the wheels back on when I'm ready to lay it down. What we'll do is I'll drop a coat here and get it to where I'm happy with it, and then clear it out in here, let it air out a little bit, put the wheels back on, drop it down, and then continue shooting. could send this out.
Merry Christmas!
Out of the air, over the airweb.
That's so cool.
Stop recording. Hi, gentlemen. What do you think? I think it looks good. So I did the paint yesterday. This Massey Ferguson color implement Rust-Oleum. A little bit of clear on a few things, right? Clean everything up. I just went over the lubrication. Combination of, oil, white lube, chain wax, right? It really depends. If it's a friction area, things are rubbing together. I like to do a little bit of chain wax and then follow up with like a little bit of spray lithium. It just depends. These things are older, right? Things aren't moving. You may have to use oil. I like a lot of oil on stuff. I like to put oil, by the way. I put some oil in his gearbox in here, all along the shaft. There's no grease fittings on this one. I get the oil in there, and then I follow up a little bit of white grease. You don't want anything that's gonna. It gets cold, and greases, will kind of congeal and get hard, and so you got to be careful with that. This one just doesn't have any grease fittings, so oil is probably your best bet. Do it frequently, but the color, you'll probably see this on a PaintJucation as well. Again, Massey Ferguson. These are all implement paints and the rusty metal primer, which I like. I did that the other day. The problem is that like when I did the rusty metal primer, it was at the end of the day and things had been warm in here. Now it's like maybe 20 degrees outside, and like yesterday when I painted the can and everything, it was so cold. I tried to give it some time in the morning, but then I had other things to do, and I can't have any windows open really because it's just too cold and windy, and the paint would run a little bit. So there was some runs because the paint goes on, the paint is cold, the metal is cold, it hits that surface even though it's primed, and it goes, I gotta go now, How's that again, Arch? No, fellas, I'm not doing that again. Stout Power. I bought a new one a bunch of years back when Sears still had their shops on the island, right, where you can go into a Sears store. And I got the one basically the same size as this, but with the 5.5 to coming. Not for here. I got rid of it. I sold it after a number of years. I was never really happy with it. Just didn't have enough power. When it gets slushy and then it gets really cold, and the weather here is crazy. So I started getting into like 10 horsepower, 8 and 10 horsepower machines, and I never looked back. Thanks for watching this one, guys, and I will see you soon, right? I can't wait to get to the next project, and I can't wait to show this to the customer and get it out of here. Get on the next project. I'll see you guys later. Let's see.